Check, 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 check. Cool, should be good. Once you all join up, say hey. Let me know you're in here. Let's see, we got one viewer. So, my name is Mike Flex. I am a motion graphics and VFX generalist that loves everything about animation. So give me just a minute to share this to a couple groups, and we're gonna go. Good to go. Let's see. So I think that's good. Do I have a live video? It's playing. Do I have a live video? This is meta. You guys can watch me browse my own Facebook. Cool. That works. We will share that group. Copy link address. Boom. Boom. Join it, y'all. Boom. Okay.
9:15
so
p.m.
This is super exciting. I don't know who out there did flash animation, but for me that was like a big thing. Homestar Runner and that whole era. Working in Flash became like a second nature to me because I was constantly either deconstructing something somebody else had done in Flash or was trying to make a game or whatever. So I got really into that world hardcore for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years around the Newgrounds era, if you guys were into that. So Cavalry, go to this cavalry.scenegroup.co and join up for the beta so you can follow along. I'll keep this stream up and share it around so you guys can watch this stuff later. So I spent a little time in the program, but for the most part, I'm going to be exploring it with you guys, like more or less for the first time. I actually did use it on something big recently, but anyway, you can see that basically what they've got for portfolio stuff is infographics, and if you go and click on, let's see, this kind of stuff, you can get some really cool effects that, yes, you can achieve these in a lot of other softwares, but what is so unique about this software is the way that you go about it. So you can supply data through CSV files. That alone is awesome. So think of like Touch Designer and the way that you can combine something that's in a spreadsheet and provide that to motion graphics. You don't have to really code the graphic side of it because that's what this whole program is like. They like made sure it's like Touch Designer for graphics. That's my first impression for it. So Node System is a little unique, so it's not like Touch Designer in that way, but it does use chords that you hook up to other things. So creating something like this, there's a lot of ways that you can do it, and After Effects you can kind of do it, but like it's so hard to procedurally, like that's more of something you would do with expressions. If you use After Effects, expressions are like a math equation or code that points to different things within the program and creates, you know, movement based on that procedural stuff. So this program makes it way easier by putting all the math in the background and giving you the ability to just drag and drop boxes on things and wires between them. So works really well with type. And it's using your GPU, so that's why it's so fast. So they've got links to video tutorials right here. They're super, super sparse. There's really not a lot out because the program's still in beta, but jump into it and get it and you'll be good. So take a look at their first steps here, creating elements, the attribute editor. Okay, I can walk you through that stuff myself. So when you open the program, this is what you see for the first time, and they link up to all that stuff. Documentation is actually super important, and just like Houdini and Cinema 4D and all the programs that are really dense, the documentation's really pretty good, and it more or less explains everything that you would have a question about. So if you get stuck, you should pretty much jump in here. And this is a great example in the help document, probably better than the website, to be honest, of like right off the bat, you can be like, whoa, that looks really cool. How would I create that in After Effects? How would, you know, I know how I could make that in, say, Cinema 4D, but not a lot of people that I know use Cinema 4D to make 2D animations. You know, do it because it's fucking awesome. But this program allows you to do it in a completely different way that allows for like kind of like iteration and creativity that's unique. And I know that special content's going to come out of this program because of the way that it's put together. So they have these things called atoms that kind of freaked me out a little bit, building blocks to create your own setups. So a bunch of these things, just like Houdini shelf tools, are just combinations of atoms, they're calling them in this program. So I don't really love when programs like go proprietary with what they call things. It's cute for branding, but it makes it a little convoluted. So there are some things in this program that I was like, oh, well, that's weird. They named it that. Okay, so new scene, canvas, color picker, animation down at the bottom. One thing I like about this program, like some of the other programs that I've been testing out lately, it's really easy to dock different parts of it. So right now I'm grabbing the timeline down at the bottom and I'm able to dock it anywhere I want in here, either in its own space or to a certain side of one of these things. They make it super easy to place things, so that's helpful and useful, and it means that you can customize the interface however you need. And I found as I was working that there's definitely like little weird interface annoyances that are based on the way that they have you working. But I would say that, I mean, if you're familiar with Flash or After Effects, this kind of looks like one of those in terms of the layout and what's going on. But you'll notice really quickly as I start to build up a scene here how kind of unique it is. So over here on the attribute editor, this is the most important part of the program. And in most programs, you usually have that like over here. I would say that makes more sense. And the color, I'm not even really worried about the color right now, so I'm just going to close that out and size this over. So the assets are things that you bring into the program and that you can use here. So this is a vector program, and that's really important because Flash and After Effects have the ability to handle SVGs, and those are really important for all different types of things, but specifically because they're a vector, they don't pixelate when they scale in and out. So this program, by default, everything's happening in vector, so you have no scaling problems, and you can load in logos and different pieces of a character and rig it all up. And there's these things called rubber hose limbs and basically a bunch of things that would empower you. There's also this thing over here called a duplicator that's a lot like the MoGraph Cinema 4D cloner tool, and the fact that you have easy access to that in a 2D program, you can get plugins that do that kind of stuff for After Effects, and ultimately it's just like a function that should be in every program but isn't. So that's what we get, is every time a new program adds it in, we can have a little fun with it. Oh, actually, nobody typed in the box and let me know that I need to full screen this. So let me full screen Cavalry. Boom, there we are. And yeah, come on, you guys want to see my face, don't you? Hey, Mike Flex here. How y'all doing? Say hey. If you're watching the streams, say what up. So Cavalry has a couple tools over here for you to draw directly on the canvas, or you can work procedurally. So let's see what we can do here. If you enter an element name down here at the bottom, that's a search bar. Directly next to this search bar is a little plus button. So this plus button is where all the fun's at. And it pops open this thing that has a bunch of tabs, and each of those tabs have different subgroups of items that are able to be added to this composition. So the composition is a lot like After Effects in terms of the way it's set up as a tree, and there's even a little motion blur button here, just like After Effects. The composition settings apparently are hiding right here. And the really unique thing about this program is everything has these plugs on them, these little blue dots. And you can plug anything into anything and have all the math in between if you need to translate stuff or whatever. But that like breaks open this program in such a way that like it's almost like paradigm changing in a way. The whole program can be modularly plugged into everything else in the program for the most part, almost everything. So really simply, um, take something like a square and we'll just put it on the canvas here, select that square. So by default, when I selected this, it popped open this thing over here in the attribute editor. And the way this program works, again, it's super, super unique. If I go and I create a circle now, it's going to open another attribute editor thing over here. And every time that you like click on a different thing or create something, they add to this attribute editor list and it just gets big and long, and there's little pins for them. And then there's a clear button, and there's a show selected and a live mode, which will automatically load the object you're clicking on at that time into it. So if I turn that on, and then I go over here and I just click on this, or I just click on this, it automatically puts them in. And I mean, it looks like you can put multiple of the same thing in there. It's kind of wild the way this thing works, because it really quickly can get full up when you're like doing an advanced animation like I was doing in it earlier. And before long, the attribute editor is long, and you like want to save certain ones because you're always editing it and you're trying to grab the little thing. So I just want to express to anybody that is wondering, you know, where, if it's node based, where are the nodes, like for me to like, they're all just on the words. So what that means is there's no node tree to go look at and edit. I'd really like it if the program had that, but if we go over into Windows, I don't think that there's anything like that. Let's just open some of these. The first one is the assets window. That is um, that's the same as this little assets tab over here, which means that you can have all of your things to drag and drop from into the canvas. You can open multiple of everything, it looks like, and what I was doing before is I had like an attribute editor over on the left for the stuff that I knew I was going to have like in the scene. So if I know I'm literally always going to need the stuff for this, I would dock it over here, I would pin it so it never leaves, and then even if I'm clearing stuff out, that extra stuff got in there. By say I double click on this square, it's now showing up over here, and that can be super annoying. When you have a bunch of stuff over there and you're sick of scrolling, you can hit this clear out, and as long as you pin something, it stays there. So if that stays there, and I go over here and I pin the rectangle over here with this attribute editor, and then I can probably open a third one. So this is super useful, and not all programs let you do this. You know, a lot of them do, but I like the fact that I can have all different types of attribute windows open for all the different shit that's going on in the scene, because you have to do that to be able to access the stuff. Like if I can't see the word, you know, let's just try to get to the stuff that's down there. I would have to drag over here, and yeah, there's no functionality to like scroll downward. And that would be useful if they had it so it could, but so anyway, let's do an example, by the way, of like how does this program do its fanciness. It's all these blue dots, and if I take the XY of the rectangle and I attach it to the XY of the shape, then anywhere that I move this will be followed by this. That seems to be natural, right? Well, not everybody who's used an animation program is familiar with nodes, or even Espresso and Cinema, which we would call set driver and set driven. If we just take the X and we plug it over into the X over here, and then I move this, oh, there's two rectangles, that was stupid. The rectangle, and plug it over here into this one. Now when I move this, it automatically is moving the circle, and why can't we see it? Because they're exactly in an identical spot. So you could offset them, and it's not super hard to do that. If you were to go into the nodes There it is. You can go into the position node. And if you right click on any of these words to the left of things, the position, you can disconnect and duplicate and replace and set keyframes, but the behaviors here is really, really special. You can just go into behavior and say add noise. So if we add noise to the position, then it's going to automatically, you know, move this thing back and forth based on that noise that gets added. So it didn't get added in this case, and basically what I did was like a poor example. So if I just put this here, and now, there we go. And now you can see that because the X to these two things are locked, it doesn't matter where this thing goes and this thing's locked. Now you used to be able to do this kind of thing maybe with Flash. You can kind of do this with parenting with After Effects, but like not really. And like to do it to have this level of tool access in 2D, it's just a different paradigm entirely. Houdini in 2D or Touch Designer just for animation. So when I started to use it, I like applied it to a current project that I was working on that didn't even call for this sort of thing, and it ended up working perfect. It was a 2D animation that I wanted to like kind of animate just like I would in After Effects, multiple pieces cut out, like pieces of paper on top of one another and having different pivot points. Really, really simple animation, but I realized that, hey, I used to be able to do that in Flash, and now I use After Effects for everything, but I hate After Effects' interface. So I was actually able to get something pretty great out of this. And then the exporting, render manager, is actually pretty great. It runs pretty fast, and you can output PNGs, GIFs, SVGs, which is crazy. I mean, you can like have an animated SVG, like super, super high res, awesome procedural animation. Like it's not easy to find a program that has this kind of capability. Padding tells you how many frame numbers are generated. Set the frame range, set the resolution scale, whether or not you're rendering with the GPU. And yeah, you can set up a bunch of different stuff to render with alpha, I believe, as well. Dynamic render. I'll have to look into what dynamic render means, but I think that what that means is that you can have something that's like procedurally animated and have like a different seed version. And oh sweet, I just got approved in the Tipper art, so we'll have a whole bunch more people jumping in hopefully soon. And I'll jump back through some of it to summarize, but for anybody who's just jumping in right now, this program is a 2D animation software that is in beta right now and has the ability to plug certain things into other things. So as I'm moving this cube around here, it's moving this other thing around. Now we can animate that on a timeline. So if I have my X for this and I put it here and I go to the beginning of my timeline and I say right click on it, the word set keyframe on X, right? And then I come down to the end and I move this down here. Some other fun buttons here. Let's see what we got. Draw debug, draw mask, turn on playback caching. That's sweet. I did not see that was there before. That's actually really important. So now that that is there, we can go here and we can say add a keyframe. Oh, duh. Right click on the word, add keyframe X, go back to the beginning, move it back, and then we're just going to right click on the word again and say set keyframe. That should be enough, right? Oh, I think you just click on it. Control click, Alt click. It's one of them. We set attribute to default. Cool. So if I animate one and then link the other one up, it'll automatically animate across. So that's fair enough, right? But what's kind of exciting about this program is that there's all these procedural ways to generate, moire effects, so like lines moving and waves and stuff like that. So let's see, if I right click on one of these, they allow you to pre-compose, so you can set a whole bunch of stuff happening, pre-compose that just like After Effects into a sub clip that then you can do other kinds of animations on. And I believe these have even layer styles and things like that as well. I opened another program by mistake, so I'm going to have to wait to close whatever that is that I just opened. But let's open some more windows to see what we got. We have the elements window. The elements are all the things that we can add to a scene. So this is kind of fun. Let's browse through these real quick. Voxelize behaviors. We'll just look at the shapes that we can create. We can create a line, we can create a shape, we can create a chart. Connecting shapes, this is pretty cool. If I do a connect shape, and I put multiple shapes, I believe, inside of this shape, I can get it to connect them both. I probably have to combine them here, within range, nearest. Aha. Shape, source, target. Wow. There's so many settings in here, it's actually, it gets pretty wild. So to keep yourself from getting all overwhelmed, you pretty much just want to have the default view, reset workspace, boom. Just close this up real quick, and I'm just going to create in here, hit this little plus symbol here, and in the shapes, I can do this convex hull. There we go, that's what I was looking for. And within here it says input shapes. So this is there's all these little pluses over here have all these sub modifiers. So I don't know if anybody here uses 3ds Max or whatever, but there's modifiers in a stack, and you can pretty much add a stack of, in this case, you can add deformers, you can add filters, and you can add input shapes to this convex hull object that I just added. How did I add that object? I went here on the plus sign, little plus sign down here. You can also go to shapes up here, create rather, and you can add stuff from in here. It's an easy way to browse through all the random shit as well. Somebody's messaging me right now, interestingly enough. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some input shapes to this without further ado. Basic shape, we just hit it in there. Okay, we got one basic shape. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add another basic shape. Boom. Now, what's going on with this convex hull thing is it's now got these children shapes in it, and I can move those around individually, and it's always going to stay connected. So let's do that one more time. Let's just add another shape. Let's make that shape a circle, and then let's make another shape. But so here's the thing, because I am clicking around and I have this live mode on here, this tiny little green thing, I should turn that off because I don't want it to keep swapping this out every single time that I click on something different in the stack. I want it to stay on convex hull. I want the convex hull thing to be on top. It is on top. Cool. So the convex hull, add one more shape to it. Let's add a basic shape. Let's change that shape by double clicking on it, and now it's down here. And that shape, not the convex hull, there it is. We want to change that to be like, say, a rectangle. So now that that's there, I can move it over here. So what I'm showing you is that you have this procedural modeling tool now where you can just throw in shapes, and yes, you can animate these things as well, throw on different types of effects to those. But for generating a silhouette, this is really cool. There's a lot of different ways that you can get something useful out of this. So if I go back up to the convex hull, close this thing out, pin this one up there because I want it to stay up top, and I go down to filters as an example. The filters are what we usually have in Photoshop or something as like a layer effect. So you can add a blur, you can add a drop shadow, and I mean, let's just get dorky with it and add the old drop shadow. Why not? So if I can put it below everything, huh? It's applying to everything. I'd rather it not. Let's go into the drop shadow and see if we can change that. No. Offset, color, amount. Yeah, no. So not the intended effect, and maybe ordering it differently will help that. No, it won't. I think this is one of those things where I need to have the drop shadow on a grouped, pre-composed version of this. If I do pre-compose selection, delete that, go on the composition. Composition 1. Unfortunately, it looks like you can't add an effect to a composition, so that's interesting, but I was expecting that they were going to let me do that. Anyway, so there's a couple other tabs on these objects as well. There's the fill tab, which right now is gray. And, oh, crash, first one. It's in beta, folks, so don't get down on them. So that crashed, and just to get back to where we were, I'll show you guys real quick. You just click on the plus, type in CON, and add in a convex hull, and then I just added a couple shapes. So if I do connect shape, delete, add a basic shape, and then I should be able to paste in a couple more of these and just move them around. I thought that was going to work, and unfortunately, because they're not assigned to this thing, it did not work. So things you learn while working in Cavalry, you have to add the shapes directly from here, and now I should be able to move stuff around. There we go. So, you know, let's get into some of the more advanced bits of it, because I'm sure if you guys are, you know, wondering how is this useful for me, I took in a drawing, sliced it up into a couple different pieces, and then had it animating here in real time. So let's try doing like a procedural one first. So I'm going to create a shape. We'll just do a circle. Let's do a basic shape. Change this over here in shape type to be a circle. You've got a radius somewhere in here. Radius, boom. And so there we go. And you know, how can we get this thing to move? Let's just right click on the radius and we'll say add behavior oscillator. And if I click play, what can I get from it? That oscillator has got to have settings. Those settings are right now strength of 100, value offset, time 139, time scale, stagger, minimum and maximum. Okay. So if I set the minimum to be something like 1 and then I just bring up this max, what we've got is a sine wave that's moving back and forth. So the playhead is playing back in real time, and if I click on cache scene here, that means it'll play back in real time the next time that it gets all the way through. So that's better. But because it's SVG, you can zoom all the way in and it's not going to pixelate or anything, which is super, super cool. There's snapping. So this program apparently crashes a lot because, as you could see, I had a single thing happening. That being said, I was able to get an entire animation out of the program, like for production. So it's not totally broken, but as you could see, it crashed really quick. The other way to bring up the object creation, I believe, is control period. Yeah. Really weird shortcuts in this program. Control period opens where you can type. So if you can remember, control dot, and then in this case, we'll just do shape again. And we wanted that to be a basic shape. And we want it to be a circle. And we want that circle to be, let's just remove the fill and add a stroke. So I went in these tabs and I was able to, you know, adjust what I'm adding. Let's add a black stroke. Okay, now there's shaders over here. If I right click here and say add shader, there's a color shader, a gradient shader, an image shader, and a shape 2 shader. So yeah, a lot of stuff to get into here, and just for the fun of it, I mean, I guess I'll do like a gradient shader and just to see the inside of the gradient settings. Tiling, set it to mirror, decal, repeat, mirror, I guess is good. Color filter, blend mode. So many blend modes. You get lost in there. Linear gradient, conical gradient, radial gradient, sweep gradient. So I think not a radial, but a conical? No. A sweep? Yeah, that's kind of cool. But if I make it go all the way white here, just to make like a loading thing or something like that, and then we'll increase the scale of the stroke, so the width of that stroke will go up. So the immediate feedback is also super useful and fun, and you can get a lot of fun out of this sort of program. So now that I did that, we're going to go into the rotation for the basic shape, right? In the shape tab, I was in stroke and I couldn't find the stuff I need. It's over here in the shape tab. And if we go to rotation, look at that. Oh, we got some loading. So if I right click on the word and I go to add behavior, you know, how would we get this to loop around perfectly, just oscillate with a sawtooth? So we'll click the oscillator, which by the way crashed it last time. Now that I have an oscillator in there, and you see my attribute menu is getting all loaded up because I've got the gradient, I've got the basic shape, and the rotation. But that also makes your brain sometimes like be like, oh, I could connect this to that, and it's so in depth that like you can get lost so quick, but ideas come out really quickly. So we'll try to make something look cool and trippy, you know, as quickly as possible here. So we'll take the rotation with the oscillator on it, and from 0 to I guess 360, right? Because that's what we want. I'll just click play. But it's on a sine wave, so let's do tangent. Weird. Okay, so I thought I was gonna have a sawtooth in here. That's my bad. I'm gonna need to think that over. The oscillator's gone. But as you can see, anyway, okay, we have an effect. And so if I take the basic shape and I hold Alt, I learned this from their tutorial. They don't really like, you know, hold Alt to hide the original shapes. Alt means that when I click on this, it's not only going to duplicate, but it's going to make this one go away. So once I have it selected, which I do, I go here, I Alt click on it, and now it's duplicated many of them, and they're all chilling. So rotation, that's all of those at once. So, okay, here we go. So one bug, quote unquote, that I noticed that they were like, that's not a bug, that's the way the program works. They actually responded to me and said that. If you try to add things while the playhead is going, they'll add them just for fun. Let's do it. Let's say add basic shape. And when you add them, they go in and they're all getting added, but like nothing updates. Like when I say nothing, I mean like even down here it doesn't update. And they say, well, that's the nature of the program. It's supposed to work that way. So it added in the shape, and I'm clicking and moving it around, but I don't have it down here in the project window. And I mean, so I can get some movement out of the real time in terms of like placing things. And I mean, this is really like no other program has what I'm doing right now. Like literally no other program has the ability to keep the playhead going and move the stuff around on the canvas. So like, I mean, I just geek out when I'm on this sort of thing. So I'm already kind of liking the effect that I'm getting here. If I add a circle and make that circle maybe white to just bring it back, black, gray, maybe create like an illusion where I've got that and take that and pre-compose it. Right? Well, I did a PreCompose, and then it all got stuck. That basic shape can get deleted. Can I take this composition here, and can I duplicate this? Let's try it. Boop. And will it play back all of them? Oh, yeah. That's nice. So in the duplicator, you have the ability, if I click over on here, this is what's insane. You can go to Fibonacci. Like, what? No other program has this. I'm geeking out right now. What? Yeah, that's effing incredible. Like, seriously. This is like something that, you know, I can set up in like any other program, but like it takes work. And so now that I've done that, check it out. What, dude? And then let's see if I can, now that I'm in a duplicator, those shapes all have a rotation as well. Hold on, Control Z. Damn it. Yeah, Control Z doesn't really work in playhead mode either. So there's like you bash your head up against the wall with random elements in the program, but as long as you can like deal with like, why is that not working? Oh yeah, like I forgot for the 40th time that I can't do that. Then you're good. So if I go into deformers, look at all these ways that I can alter this thing that's happening. So this duplicator, let's add a drop shadow just for fun to see what it looks like. It looks terrible. Like, so I added that drop shadow, and it's in the scene and it's happening, but we can't see it, and it doesn't even look like it got added over in the filter. So you have to hit play, and then everything updates. And yeah, they said that that's like a feature, not a bug. So I'm annoyed by that, but whatever. Do that, make it less alpha. Nice. So like I can already out of this thing get you know, a really like, yeah, you can do that in After Effects, but it would take all these other things. You can't go like say give me a Fibonacci clone of that like without some other plugin, and even sometimes installing plugins is annoying in After Effects. Some of y'all know what I mean. But so this duplicator has a random, and the random can be like that. And like so because this supports SVG, it also supports PNG and a bunch of other, you know, transparent stuff. You can bring in that stuff and have it animate around with all these other sorts of ideas. So let's, for fun, I'm gonna doing this for a guy I know. Let's see. Bread. Pixel. Ah, we got some bread. That's some nice bread. Transparent bread. I like this bread. Maybe it should be a little more detailed. I don't know. I like this guy. Yeah, he's cute. Oh, but he's dancing. Do I want him to dance? No. Well, if that works, then that'll be awesome. So let's do save image as. And I'm going to put this in my daily folder. Daily. 20 daily. And what's today? We have the 18th. And this is going to be bread. So let's go add this over here. Oop. Let's see. Bread. Okay. I'm going to add bread. Do I have bread? Do I have bread? I want that bread. I want that bread. What you doing? Is this it? Create a folder, create new project level, assets, file, import asset. They make it really hard. So you can't drag and drop into the program. That's the first thing that's really stands out to me as annoying. let's go into my dailies again. Today. Okay, so I can import JPEGs, PNGs, CSVs, AIFs, waves, SVGs. So I can't bring in an animated GIF into this program. That would be amazing. That would be like the cherry on top if I could import GIFs. So let's give it a little transition then. So what do we got? We're going to bring our little bread friend in and make him transparent. Then I'm going to bring him in here and we're going to make a bread mandala. I want to. I'm going to get a couple different pieces of bread. How about that? Bread. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love all that bread. Save image as. This is bread 2. Bread 2. Okay, I'm saving myself the trouble of messing around in Photoshop right now just to be faster for y'all. So we'll go back into Cavalry, and we'll hope we don't get any crashes. Import asset. Every time we go to import asset, it brings me back to the root folder, which is super, super annoying. Boop. So I've got bread. And instead of bread, instead of that thing, oh, tried to drag it in and it crashed. So that didn't work. Let's try doing it manually. File, import asset. Wow, see, they're really rough. Give me that freaking bread, man. Okay, we got some bread. Oh my gosh, we got bread. So now I click on this and I'll alt click on this and now we got mad bread. So now let's do Fibonacci bread. Fibonacci bread. And now we want to radius of Fib. That's fucking sick. I love it. I really love it. Sorry if it doesn't excite you as much as that excites me, that's your fault. We're dealing with bread now. All of the bread. Yeah, and it's all sweet pixelated bread. Eat that. Eat that stuff. Yum, 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 yum. So that's already kind of cool. Yeah, I feel really great about that. And then the input shapes, we're giving it bread. Motion blur is pretty sweet because if it's playing back and there's things moving, I guess I should put like an oscillator on this. Let's pause it. Right. I'll save where we're at. File. Save. Because, yeah. 01. Boom. So if I go to the radius and I right click on it and say add behavior, let's do a sound. I'm going to click on it just for fun and see what we got. So sound radius, right click. It says for updates during playback, enable preferences, UI updates in playback for updates. Oh. They told me that was a thing that was supposed to happen. Why didn't they tell me that I could go change it? Edit. I'm looking for preferences. Tool. Windows. Preferences. Oh, I have not seen this page. It's my fault. Autosave. That's useful. Default. That's good. UI updates in playback. Yeah, I want that. Okay, cool. I don't know what those do. Equalizer. Gotcha. drag in a file from the assets window to get some tunes. I wonder, just for fun, just gonna drop in something. Will they let me do it this way? Yes. It says drag a file from the assets window. Boop. Nice. So that's really interesting. Oh, wow. Now I get it. It's a really weird interface. It does the job, but gotta put this other thing on. So we want it to frequency bands, value offset, substeps, smoothing, strength, bump it up. Way up. Make it way up. And then smoothing frames, let's add some
10
more.
p.m.
Let's do like 10 smoothing frames. And then while that's happening, let's go to our bread and tell our bread that it can rotate. Can it rotate? Duplicator. Let's see. Input shapes. We got bread 2. Shape rotation. Let's work with that. We'll make the shape rotation be random. And then we'll reverse to the beginning and press play. And now that random is running. So we want to go to the random and we want to say that, there we go. Use normals? No. Separate channels, use bias graph, offset, push, 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 push. Nice. Yeah, that's fucking ridiculous. So now that I have that, let's go from 0 to 100 just continuously. So I think it's like, is it modulating? Is that what's happening? I'm going to try modulate. Let's modulate. Yeah, no, that's not right. Maybe if I do offset, add behavior, oscillator, there we go. And we'll add a background object in here, so we'll do control dot BA. Let's add background shape, and that background shape, I don't know why they make you hit escape after typing in something. There we go. So this bread 2 here is the reference object for that other thing. And if I double click on it, fs, let's do control dot and type f, footage shape. That's really interesting. So a footage shape has a child within it, and the child of the footage shape is able to be used in a duplicator. That makes sense. The shader is inside the shape, and the shape is the only thing that can be duplicated. Fair enough. Maybe you guys don't follow that. Feel free to ask any questions. Happy to answer. So let's do file save. And I'm going to do some black and white stuff because everybody loves that. File. Let me see. Let's do a make a control point, and we'll do a line. And can we deform that line? Let's see. Morph, noise, pinch. Can I round it? Rubber hose limb. That's interesting. So when you choose rubber hose limb, you end up with these bottom and top objects that are able to move it around. And when they get close to one another, it kind of like bends like so. So that's pretty interesting. And you can get some really fun little walking animations of like a little dude's arms or whatever. So I'm sure that there's a lot of ways that that can be useful. I'm not super sure that I could potentially use it to its fullest extent, but I like that they added in there. Let's see. Let's create some maybe lined patterns. Control, we'll do circles. Let's do black circles, basic shape. And then we will put those inside a circle. And then we will make that a black circle. And then we will put that inside a duplicator. And that duplicator can be set to Fibonacci. And we will grow the radius. We'll go back to our basic shape, and we'll go to the scale radius down at the bottom, and we'll scale that down. And we will rise up the count, and we will spread out the radius. And so another thing that's pretty cool about this is almost every one of these functions that we have here has a separate like fall off to it, I believe. So I could probably add that in with like a filter or a modifier. Yeah. 3D matrix, behavior mixer, blend shape, boolean, distance. Interesting. Adding in a distance to the duplicator. No target. Distance to the position of the shape. The basic shape. Put it in there. Okay. Yeah, I didn't do that right. But now that we have that, you can change it. Whoa, nice. So we already have a coolish look going on there. I like it, I like it. Let's up the count. Nice. That's cool. Now, the shape count is up, the radius, good. There we go. And now if I go here to the shape rotation, shape scale. Oh, whoops. Turn down the opacity. That's an interesting look. Rotation. Nice. There we go. That's pretty cool. So I think that there's also shape booleans as well. How are we all doing out there in the internet world? It says, how easy would it be to export? Isn't that what the dirty disco one is? Huh, anyway. This little guy, basic shape, and the duplicator, shape visibility, on and off, shape ID. So I can probably pop a couple different shapes in there. Let's do this for fun. Input shapes. And really add shapes. Okay, add another shape into the duplicator. And if I hide it, and I shift the object ID, okay, aha. Now I get it. So I can apply a random to this shape ID, and it'll randomly select between the two shapes that are listed in this input shapes thing. So if I click on that, it shows that there are two shapes in it, and I could remove them if I wanted. I can go over into this basic shape too, and I can scale it down. So let's go to scale. We'll link the X and the Y of these two things, and then I'll just pull the X down and it'll control them both at once. That's interesting. Oh, the radius. There we go. So because I've got these little polygons, and I've got this basic shape, those two indexes, let's close this attribute, then I can jump between these two looks just by jumping back and forth between the index. So if I go to the index 1 and 2, shape ID, right click on it, and say add behavior, a value array. That's interesting. I'm just gonna add a value array so I can see what it is real quick. Auto array, array index, value 0 and 1. Yeah, okay. So if I add 0 and 1, 0 and 1, and it's got the two of these. And it looks like it pretty much goes, one every other. So if I add one more and make it a 1 again, and then I add one more and I make it a 1 again, then what it's doing is it's going 1, 2, 3. It's going black circle, gray, 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 black, gray, 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 black, gray, gray, gray. So the value array allows me to stack them in an order that I desire, but based on the shape ID that I put in earlier. And I'm assigning those over here in the index values. So if I turn off auto index, then I can jump through the couple that I have here, which are 0 through 3. If I right click on the array index, I mean, I could literally create a concatenating, like do that again. But for the fun, let's just go to random. And now what it's going to do is randomly select from all those different things rather than in the perfect order that we had them. So then if I go into the random array and I offset it, 0. If I change the seed, every time I change it, I'm getting a 100% unique combination of all these different shapes. So again, if you don't do motion graphics, like maybe you don't see the value in this, but like this is not easy to do in any other system. And if you do it in another system, it's usually going to be a 3D program like Cinema 4D or 3ds Max or Maya or any of those. But to use those high-level 3D softwares with these big convoluted interfaces to do like simple 2D animation and particularly procedural stuff, like there's no way you can do this in any other program. So I'm just so happy to have this program and to mess around with it. So let's see. If I increase the strength here, I can go from 0 randomness to lots of randomness. I mean, even just animating that single parameter right there already has a lot of interest. And I mean, I don't even know what I'm looking at, but what it tells me is I can go all the way back down to duplicator level and probably go into the Fibonacci settings and change the angle. And as I'm, you know, sweeping through, I can be modulating that back and forth. So let's see.
PM.
If I go to sine wave on this angle, I'm going to right click on the angle. I'm going to say add behavior oscillator, and now it has a sine wave attached to it. And if we go to it and we say your minimum is 0, or your minimum is like 4,000, I'm just random numbers, and then your maximum is like 5,000. Okay, that's way too much, so let's do 400. And then your maximum is like 600, or do like 100, or negative 600, or nope, negative 100. No, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's see. Way too much, way too much. The value was of the duplicator, so if I get rid of this and get rid of this, now I can look at the duplicator and say that the point was to go from 284 to like something else. 284 to, let's just say 300, just because I want to see what it's doing real quick. Wow. It's already just so much. It's like too much. So maybe 280. 280. I'm trying to get it to cache the playback so it'll play a little faster. So like, it's a little fast, so I'll slow it down. It's doing a little, it's doing it faster than it needs to. So if we go to time scale and I bring that down to like 0.4, it's probably going to be slow. I thought it would be slow. Let's go even slower. Let's go to like 0.13, whatever. So another thing that I haven't done is turn on motion blur. So if I go to my duplicator and I turn on motion blur and I turn on motion blur in the comp, it's going to take a second to calculate. Hopefully it doesn't crash or anything. It'd be really nice if I could save. I'm not always the best for remembering to save before I ask it to do a lot of calculation, but what it's trying to do right now is it's trying to do motion blur on all of these little objects. There they go. Whoa. Yeah. So as you see, like the real-time element disappears really, really quickly when you start to work in the more advanced stuff like layer effects and obviously motion blur. You do not need to do motion blur in this program. You can obviously render it fast out of this program and bring it into something. Real Smart Motion Blur is a really, really good plugin for After Effects that has like a really nice motion blur, and then of course After Effects has its own stock motion blur as well if that's the way you want to go with it. But what I can say is it's not like underwhelmingly slow. Yes, it is. It's underwhelmingly slow. Especially if it's running off the GPU. But there, I have so much shit. So it's calculating the blur based on the speed of the vertexes through the scene, or comparing it versus. I could be talking on my ass. It very well could just be doing frame comparing. But anyway, let's turn off motion blur for now. Go in here and we can change the FPS. Playback step, I think, is pretty cool because you can do slower. It's like every other frame now, so it renders way faster. That's actually a nice workaround. I didn't even think about that, so it doesn't have to calculate every single frame to just see what you're doing and whatever. So I'm not using fantastic assets to fill those spaces, but as you can imagine, you can replace those with whatever you want. So it looked like before what we had to do was set up something called, where is it? Image to shapes. If I create that, there's an image to shape. Oh, this is like a vector auto trace that they like added in. It's super, super crazy. Image to shapes. Oh, I think it makes it like a rectangle or circle fill on the object. Let's just try and, I guess, get something in there. Hopefully this bread just loads up. I say, give me that bread. Image to shapes. Cool. So it took the input of the bread and it made a bunch of rectangles. Let's make it a bunch of circles instead. Okay. Oh, cool. And it's like a fractal, so it's like how many times are you gonna... I think it's applying like the quad tree thing on the back end, but there's this thing called a quad tree, and it pretty much just makes these random things. So these are really great for motion graphics, I'm sorry, infographics type stuff. I don't know what you use this particular one for, but pretty cool. You can get some interesting stacking looks. And the fact that it's just so fast to work with is what's so addictive to it. Morph, let's see, sample morph, wave morph. That's probably what I was looking for, huh? Sampling offset, morph target. Can I morph this thing? Huh. I'm gonna have to look up what morph target for image to shapes does. And just for fun, I show you guys, you just go to the documentation here. Shapes. Image to shapes. For behaviors. Morph. This page is empty. So as you can see, it's in beta. A lot of this stuff, you're like, whoa, how do I use that? Okay, let's go hop into the help. Last updated 1 year ago. So they're not telling you how to use this. I'd like to know where I'm supposed to connect this morph target, but whatever C is. Interesting. Copy as SVG. That's really cool. Zoom, backend, OpenGL, select. Oh, cool. If you got multiple things under, they let you select multiple from multiple. So I think I've begun to show the power of the program. Maybe it wasn't really the most exciting one in the world, but I think that that just seeing the potential of the program is huge, and I hope that the software sees a ton of people adopt it. I hope that anytime that you see problems with it and have complaints, that you can communicate with the developers when you want a feature added. You know, I don't always have the time for that stuff, but when other people do it, I see it in the next update, and I'm like, oh wow, that's incredible. Thanks for complaining about that. So yeah, get in with this program, mess around with it, create some content, and of course you can turn off, you know, the background here and export a transparent PNG, bring this into After Effects, add extra effects on top of it, or just simply use them as transparent content for VJs like in Resolume or whatever. So I'm going to have a lot of VJ packs coming out that I've been preparing over the past year. And there's going to be a ton of content that I've generated out of Cavalry. So, you know, if you guys are interested in having either a one-on-one tutorial and being taught how to make your own clips, or if you'd like to commission me to make some custom content for you, I have this new incredibly powerful tool in my hands, and I'm happy to use it. So thanks so much for tuning in. And if you guys have any questions, or you know, you're interested in seeing a particular look, let me know. I'm going to do one last look before I go off to do some more commission work for the evening. So let's do a new scene, and let's just add a line, whatever, right? Basic line. And if I take that line and I rotate it, and I'll scale it up. Let's see, length, boop. Let's make it really big. Divisions, there can be less divisions. I don't really mind. We'll do, yeah, why not? Do 50 divisions in our line. We'll take our stroke and we will size that baby up. Black. Cap style round. Nice. So now that I've got a big one, put that into a duplicator. Other one's hidden. And now this duplicator can be set to an array. And that array can have rotation. And the position can be like such. Add. Oh, nice. That's really cool. Let's see what the faster way to do that is. Grid. It goes 0 in the X, 3 in the Y. Oh, nice. Can we get a step instead? There it is. Okay, pattern offset. If I go from there, oh, let's add some more. So I'm going to start with it like that. And if I control click on it, right? What is it, control click, or is it shift click? Is it right click? It's something. Double click. Pattern offset. Set a keyframe on Y. Yeah, I know there's a better way to do that. but Control didn't want to do it.
(10:30 p.m.)
Okay, so I'm gonna start adding some effects and try to get some weirdness on here. Let's see what we got. Voxelize. That's not a great idea, is it? Okay, back in, try again. I'm just gonna basically add a bunch of random effects in here to try and see what I get from them. In the case of modulation, anything that I get from that? I don't think so. Okay. So modulate gets us nothing. What we want to do is go into deformers, noise. Weird. So if I go in my noise, and I add a curl noise, no. Control Z, go to minimum, maximum. Nice. So it's displacing these vectors in 3D space, which is pretty cool. Cellular noise, cubic noise. Let's hit play and see if we can get something. So let's go back into my preferences because I don't like that I can't move things. UI updates, turn that off. Okay. I hit play before it was like not letting me do my thing. So as that moves, I want to be able to move the distance on my duplicator. So down here, the step size, there we go. So just for fun, we'll add that music back in there. Let's get our bread in there too, why not, you know? Let's just add all our assets in there. Boom. There we go, and then okay. So now that we have that, now we know that we want the strength of the duplicator size to be driven by the sound. Okay, so we're going to right click on the sound, we're going to say add behavior, sound to the Y. And now I have this pattern offset for the sound, and if I drag the file in from the window, scale it, sound 1 size.y in the duplicator, right? Yeah. It's interesting. I think I need to have maybe pre-composed it because it appears as a bug in the linking, because it's pretty much just once I added that connection, it removed the ability to be duplicating multiple of them. So I'll try that again. So now that we've got that baby going, add like a filter. Know what's up with that. Let's go into that filter called the radial wipe, and the completion is interesting. Really weird. Other interesting. Start angle. Screen space. So for completion, I'll say add sound. Right? So now that we have sound for the completion of the radial wave, now I will drag that there, and that should do it, I would think, if I hit play. looks like this one band. Okay, I figured it out, I think. Nice. Cool. So now that I made that, I feel like, you know, making assets in this program and bringing them into another one like After Effects would be really, really cool. So now that I made this thing and it looks cool, let's try to just export it and bring it maybe into After Effects or whatever and see what we can do with it there. So File, we'll say Export, and Render Manager. So 1920 by 1080. PNG with alpha, like that's effing sick. That's just built in there. What quality, fast, I don't care. Output from 0 to 250 with padding. Where are you gonna put it? Right there is fine. I'll just say animation 1, whatever. Choose. And then let's hit render. And it pumps it out really fast because again it's using the GPU renderer, and yeah, it goes incredibly quick. So this will be done in just a moment, and then I will bust out the old After Effects. Cheers. So yeah, I hope that some of you guys got turned on to this new software. Go get the beta. Again, it's interesting website address. It's like cavalry.scenegroup.co. But there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do in here. And I didn't really explore it yet, but it looks like there's a lot more stuff going on here. Graph editor, there we go. So yeah, there's a whole animation graph that you can go in and kind of control click, insert keyframe, ghost, grid snapping. Nice, they choose if you want to have additive looping or repetitive looping, so that's pretty cool. Keyframe, layer editor, time editor, graph editor. Pretty cool. Cool. So now we are in After Effects, and we will say project, composition, 1920 1080. Boom. I think we did it at 30 FPS, right? No, we did it at like 25 FPS. But it'll maybe yell at us about that. Import file. Animation 1, number the first one, PNG sequence, import as footage. Boom. Drop in here. We should be doing alright. So we'll put in a new solid white background. Boop, behind it. There it is. Looking nice. Looking nice. Now it is what it is. And then we'll just right click on it. Do an effect of enable time remapping. Alt click on it, go to this little thing.
10:45 p.m.
Say loop out. Bring this over here. Now it should just keep going and going and going. Cool. So first step's all set. I'm in the version, I can't use that. So my idea was to first new adjustment layer, because there's too much white, so we're just going to put old trusty channel invert. Just getting the first set of looks on it. Okay. Okay. I don't even use this in here. Well, that works. And then we'll get a second version. Okay. That one we can have 90. Oh, what the heck is going on? crashed it. Love it. So let's pop back into the old Cavalry. Birdie wings there. I'm going to my duplicator. And then I basically, what I had in mind, well, I did change my mind a little bit what I thought I wanted to do. We have this go around, shape rotation, add behavior, random. I go to that random shape rotation, and I say random, add noise, go into that noise, make it cubic noise. Okay, so we got these dancing stuff that goes with the beat, and I mean that I was able to get this out of there so easily, and that it looks so good. Like again, you know, maybe you can get this stuff in Resolume, whatever, but um, getting a nice clip and then making sure that it's super high res and getting it exported out properly, and then having that as an element to use in other stuff is super rare to find a program that has as much versatility as Cavalry. So I'm going to find every opportunity that I can to implement it into my work, and even just creating kind of like sample pack assets to have in the background that are entirely unique. That's what's really special to me in my performances, and you know what I feel people hire me for is I don't just use stock everything. I try to go custom with everything. So hopefully this will be yet another piece of that tool set that allows me to just empowers me to make more stuff faster, greater. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I will be releasing a bunch of tutorial series coming soon. Having two kids and getting all of my studio stuff perfectly in line, caught up, is taking a lot of effort, and I appreciate those that support me, and my clients and my friends out there that know I'm doing the thing and they don't give me crap about not responding quickly. Thank you so much, and we'll be doing a lot more of this in the coming weeks. So Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.